After winning 3 battles in a single day at Summerhall, Robert Baratheon now had the time to rally his bannermen, with them gathering at Storm's End. With Jon Arryn marching from the Gate of the Moon in the Vale, and Eddard Stark now returned to Winterfell and beginning the long march south, it seemed obvious that Robert Baratheon, with his own lands now secure, would march north to the Riverlands to meet with his allies. But as to be expected in war, the loyalists of House Targaryen had other ideas, and hoped to prevent Robert from joining his forces with his supporters. Much like the days gone by of the Age of Heroes, the Lords of the Reach would prove to be an annoying thorn in the side of the young Stormlord. Lord Mace Tyrell had declared for King Aerys II Targaryen, and with him came all the power and riches of the Reach. The Reach's strength didn't just come from its ability to raise a large army, but the fact it was the breadbasket of Westeros, and one of the most financially prosperous of the Seven Kingdoms. Importantly for Lord Tyrell, he also had Lord Randyll Tarly of Horn Hill as part of his army, a respected commander, a brave warrior, and in possession of one of the very few Valyrian steel blades left in Westeros, Heartsbane. While Robert had proven himself as a warrior at Goldtown and a commander at Summerhall, he was still very green and unexperienced, as well as very rash, something the Reachmen could perhaps exploit. Robert decided to act quickly now his western border of the Stormlands was no longer secure. With the Crownlands to the north, Dorne to the south, and the Reach to the west, the young lord found himself with enemies on all sides who could very easily box him in to the Stormlands. Thus Robert struck out from Storm's End with his army and headed west towards the Reach. He left behind his younger brother, the 18-year-old Stannis, with a small force to hold the castle to prevent the stronghold being taken in his absence. Stannis would fulfill his role dutifully and become one of the standout commanders of the rebellion. Crossing into the Reach, Robert managed to march as far as the town of Ashford, but it appears he was outmaneuvered by Lord Randyll Tarly, who was in command of the vanguard of Lord Tyrell's larger host, catching them just as the Stormlanders neared Ashford. The battle would be short and bloody, with both sides losing men. The biggest losses came from the Stormlanders. During the fight, Lord Tarly slew Lord Catherine with his Valyrian steel greatsword Heartsbane. After the battle, he is said to have cut off Catherine's head and sent it to Aerys as a gift. Before the Tyrell main host could join the vanguard at Ashford, Robert reluctantly withdrew from the Reach and marched north to his allies, leaving the Stormlands open for invasion and attack. Lord Mace Tyrell was publicly lauded and praised for the victory at Ashford, but the reality is, it was very much Randyll Tarly's day, as Mace only arrived at the battlefield well after the fighting was done. Rather than pursue Robert, Lord Tyrell chose to march into the Stormlands itself, to Storm's End, where he would lay siege to the castle for the rest of the rebellion. Shortly after the siege began, the Tyrell host was joined by Lord Paxter Redwine's mighty fleet from the Arbor, completing the siege by land and sea. It was only the steel and determination of Stannis Baratheon and his few men that prevented the fall of Storm's End. Due to the outcome of the rebellion, we tend to know much more about the roles of the rebels during the war than the Loyalists and House Targaryen. But something we do know for sure is that by the time of the Battle of Ashford, King Aerys II was getting increasingly frustrated with not only his son Prince Rhaegar, but also the Dornish, whom by right should be supporting the Loyalists, given Prince Rhaegar's wife, Elia Martell, was sister to the Prince of Dorne, Doran Martell, that her son, the babe Prince Aegon, would one day be king. It is said that even before the rebellion, that Doran Martell was furious at the humiliation and mistreatment his sister had suffered at the hands of King Aerys II, and thus this has been credited to his slow movement and preparations for war. Elia and her children typically resided on Rhaegar's seat of Dragonstone. Not only would it be safer in the event of King's Landing falling, but it kept her away from Aerys and the volatile situation within his court. But with Rhaegar rallying the Targaryen forces, Aerys commanded Elia and her children to return to the Red Keep, which she reluctantly did. As the threat of the rebels increasingly grew, it is said that Aerys directly threatened Elia's uncle, Lewin Martell, who was a member of his own Kingsguard, reminding him that Elia, Rhaenys and Aegon were under his care. Soon after this, Lewin returned to Dorne and took command of 10,000 Dornishmen, who would march through the Red Mountains north and aid Prince Rhaegar. While we cannot know for sure the exact timing of these events, it is believed to have happened after the Battle of Ashford, but before 283 AC. But King Aerys II Targaryen was not done there. He was now moved to action, seeing the rebels as a true threat to House Targaryen that they were. Owen Merryweather had been serving as Hand of the King since the departure of Tywin Lannister in 281 AC. In Aerys' eyes at least, Owen proved ineffectual in preventing the uprising. While he did attempt to win the favour of some of the Stormlords, it was not enough to stop Robert Baratheon from building his army. These failures and perceived inactions made the paranoid Aerys believe that Lord Merryweather was conspiring with them and was in fact a rebel. Owen was subsequently stripped of his lands and titles and exiled for his failures. In truth, given the nature of the Mad King, it is lucky that Owen managed to leave King's Landing with only an exile, given the fiery fates most who failed the Mad King received. Aerys was now in need of a new hand, and the king, being his erratic self, took a path few could have foreseen. To match the youth of Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark, two of the key leaders of the rebellion, Aerys wanted someone younger and vigorous as his next hand, so he named Jon Connington to the office. Tywin Lannister had always considered Connington to be too young and impetuous, with some speculation Tywin's dislike of Connington being the true motivation for Aerys' appointment. Connington was a very left-field choice as Hand, to say the least, a choice that took many by surprise, given his age and position. Jon was the only son of Armon Connington, the Lord of Griffin's Roost, and his wife. He served as a squire in King's Landing, first alongside Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, and later for the Crown Prince himself. Jon was considered to be one of Prince Rhaegar's dearest friends. Some felt Jon was the most headstrong of the young lordlings who gathered around Rhaegar, seeking his favour. However, the nature of Jon's friendship with Rhaegar is debated, with some sources claiming it was very one-sided on Connington's part. During a time when Jon's father was still alive, Rhaegar was returning from a trip to Dorne and visited Griffin's Roost for a fortnight. At the welcoming feast, Rhaegar played a song on his harp that made every woman in the hall cry, but per Jon's recollection, none of the men. Rhaegar later visited the tallest tower of the castle with Jon and complimented the beauty of Connington lands. After Armon died, Jon inherited the rule of Griffin's Roost. When Jon left to serve at King's Landing, he would name his cousin Sir Ronald Connington as Castellan. In 280 AC, Jon would be present at the wedding of Rhaegar to Princess Elia Martell of Dorne, and a year later, in 281, he was also present at the tourney at Harrenhal, where he is said to be one of the men who danced with Ashara Dane. Jon's apparent friendship with Rhaegar also struck many as odd, given Aerys' appointment, specifically because of the distrust between Aerys and Rhaegar, with weeks ago, Aerys fearing his son would try and depose him. Regardless, this new hand would not make the same mistakes. He would take action, and take the fight directly to the rebels.